My dear friends, today we are concerned with, on The Guardian, men's fixation on young women is another sign of masculinity in crisis. In this article, The Week in Patriarchy under Feminism by Arwa Mahdawi. Okay? So, I didn't know if you were aware of it, but we have a masculinity crisis right now. And this clever person on The Guardian has chosen studies that seem to misalign with the article, with the conclusions that she's come with. So she starts with: the depressing new study about online dating indicates a problem that is reverberating across every aspect of our society. And she starts with: men attracted to emotionally unstable women, preferably no older than 18, studies show. This week's peer-reviewed portrayal of fragile masculinity comes to you from the journal Science Advances, which recently published a depressing new study about online dating. And I'm going to go to that study because this depressing new study of online dating is quite an eye-opener, and I guess it's depressing if you are undesirable. If you were somebody that the average person would find undesirable, say grossly overweight or not considered attractive, because this is a aspirational pursuit of mates in online dating markets. And they rate people by desirability and how people go after those that are ranked higher than them in desirability, say higher class, higher desirability. And they do that in part. They study thousands of people and they study their online activity on dating sites, and they judge it by how often, the quality of responses certain people are, and they rate people in this study by highest desirability and lowest desirability. They found that one of the conclusions in this study is that people both men and women shoot for someone that is modestly higher desirability than themselves. So that's the same for both male and female. They shoot for people that are at the same desirability level and people that are lower in desirability. So it reflects how life is. People shoot high, they shoot across, and they shoot low. So I didn't see anything about men attracted to emotionally unstable women. Well, we'll get to that though. There's an article in here that is misrepresented. We'll get to that though. So anyway, researchers looked at nearly 200,000 heterosexual users and found that while men's sexual desirability peaks at age 50, women hit their prime at 18. And then it's all downhill from there, apparently. Can I just remind you that 18-year-olds are teenagers? And so this study is basically saying that straight men don't find women attractive. They like girls. Now, I want to get back to that because this study says nothing of the kind. As a matter of fact, it's dealing with adults. And as you can see by the title, aspirational pursuits of mates in online dating markets. That's what it's about. It doesn't say men are attracted to prepubescent teens. Okay, they're dealing with adults on this site. Okay, they deal with all age groups of adults. And it's the aspirational pursuit of mates that they deal with. They came to no such conclusion about dirty old men looking for teenagers. And I have to add that 18-year-olds, as said here, are teenagers. 19-year-olds are teenagers too, but they are legally adults. I know that from wherever you live, the age of consent may be lower, but I'm talking about adults. Maybe there's countries where adults are considered 21. I don't know. Okay, so let's get back to the article. Hashtag, not all men, I'm sure. However, this isn't the first study to find men are fixated on women a lot younger than them. I want to jump in here because you don't have to look for a study to be told the obvious. That men are attracted to younger women. And I wonder why. Okay, so let's put aside what women might be attracted to. Okay, but men are attracted to healthy, young females who appear fertile. And let's explore that. Now, I'm not a clinical psychologist or anything like that, but there are some basic things, like if you're looking to start a family and you're, say, in your mid-20s, mid-30s, mid-40s, some people get started late, some people make mistakes and they go back, okay? If you're looking to start a family, your first choice is in a woman that's in her 70s for, having offspring. So where would you start? Where would you start? Younger, okay? I would start with a woman that is younger if I'm looking to. Now, of course, what you end up with, what you want and what you end up with, as we'll see in a real study later on, and I'll interpret it correctly because I'll just read from it. I won't do what this person has done and just interpret the crap out of it and interpret it incorrectly. Okay, the reality of the dating world, we'll get into that. Okay, but it's an obvious thing that when we have this drive to reproduce, good or bad, do you like it? Do you not like it? I don't know. We have it. Okay, it's a biological fact. Okay, and men who are looking to reproduce aren't going to look into the geriatric center for women that are hot to produce babies, because they're not going to be doing that. Okay? So we'll get back to this troubled article. A 2010 study by OkCupid found that the medium 30-year-old man spends as much time messaging teenage girls as he does women his own age. No doubt Roy Moore might have a thing or two to say about that. So this is where we're getting into some really troubled water. This is dishonest because 18 and 19-year-old people are adults. And I myself, when I was 18 and 19-year-old, I dated 18 and 19-year-old. And I didn't consider them, well, they were technically teenagers, but I saw them as partners or girlfriends or what have you. Now, bringing Roy Moore into this, a man in his 30s that was hitting on girls that were 14 or allegedly, things like that, that's kind of trying to bias the reader into thinking that these dirty old men looking for teenagers are Roy Moore going after 14-year-olds. And that's not the case. And we'll get to, like I said, the last article, we'll get to the reality of what actually happens in dating. The OkCupid thing shows that the oldest allowable match and the youngest allowable match for men and women, they have a range. And for men, it's in a range that's a little bit younger than women. Here's the little chart they show right here on the screen. So nothing really odd about that. And this is curious. She says, I promise you, I'm not here to promote the gay agenda and undermine heterosexuality. Really? That's actually the last thing from my mind, that she was trying to promote the gay agenda. I think she's trying to promote the third wave feminist intersectional agenda. That's what I think she's trying to do. Okay? And I don't think she's trying to undermine heterosexuality. She's trying to undermine men. But I've got another alarming report to really top things off. A recent study, and you'll like this one, published in the Journal of Sex Research, found that men whose partners had less emotional stability reported a better sexual function Sounds really healthy, guys. Here is the article that she's referring to. Exploring the impact of personal and partner traits on sexuality. Sexuality excitation, sexual inhibition, and Big Five predicts sexual functions in couples. This is targeting sexual dysfunction, sexual difficulties. I didn't get that. I didn't find that anywhere in the article that men whose partners had less emotional stability reported better sexual function. I'm sure she gleaned somewhere in there that somebody with some dysfunction did better with a younger person. And, well, why are we surprised by that? So the report is on sexual dysfunction. This is not a report on things that, oh, this is a report on, hey, we're going to study guys going around trying to date younger girls. It's not about that. So far, 3 for 3, the writer of this article has misrepresented 3 studies or 3 articles on partners and sex and dating to conform with her agenda. And she finishes up here. It's a very short article. While these studies may focus on sexual relations, and some do, they're yet another reminder that we're facing a crisis of masculinity that is reverberating across every aspect of our society. I haven't noticed it, to be honest. I really haven't seen any crisis in masculinity. She goes on to say the far right is dominated by men. I wouldn't know who the far right is dominated by and how you would come about knowing that. Maybe there's a lot of things dominated by men. Maybe football or jazz music. I don't know. So, but I don't know how she comes to that conclusion. Many of whom seem to be searching for a sense of identity. Here's the thing, the far right is dominated by men, and they're searching for a sense of identity. I think they found their identity if they're in the far right. That's an odd statement. For feminism to get anywhere, we must seriously address how we think about masculinity. Yes, you must seriously, and you must seriously start think about how you use propaganda to get across your message, and so you're not seen as unreasonable and not worthy of listening to. So we're going to get to the last article that tells you about the realities. CBS News, Amy Norton reports that do older men prefer younger women? New study challenges stereotype. Now, I happen to think that I don't care about this, the study challenging stereotype. I think older men prefer younger women, and in a lot of the studies, younger women prefer older men. That's biological. Men prefer women that are closer to the age of reproducing, and it's possible that women, I'm generalizing, but want men that have the ability to do their job as a man. An 18-year-old man might not be established in business or have a successful career. Okay, and I know that's like gender stereotyping. Men are supposed to be the breadwinners and women are supposed to be the reproducers, but women do reproduce and men don't, okay? And I really don't care who is the breadwinner, and I don't care who reproduces. Unfortunately, only about half the population can do that when they're of age, of course. There's some things that are just reality, they're common sense. We may sound opinionated when we're talking about it, but we're talking about things that, you know, I like a glass of juice, white grape juice, but I don't like it when it's sour, it's gone bad, it's been sitting out for 2 weeks. There's some things that, okay, so we'll get back to this article. The stereotype that older men are usually attracted to much younger women may not fully reflect reality, a new study suggests. The study of Finnish adults found that many heterosexual men were, in fact, interested in women substantially younger than they were. And on average, they had a more generous definition of too young than women did. But on the other hand, men were also attracted to women their own age. And as they aged, their preferences for sexual partner matured too. So, in that original article, she cites that, I think OkCupid, that medium 30-year-old man spends as much time messaging teenage girls as he does women his own age. Okay, so that sounds normal. Basically, the stereotype that older men go for younger women is too crude, says researcher Jan Anfolk of Abo Academy University in Turku, Finland. Sure, some older men have a strong preference for clearly younger women, but most tend to also find older women attractive. I don't know, it sounds common sense. An interesting finding is that as men age, they become less picky about age. he added, they report an interest in both younger and older women, like the OkCupid study. And of course, in the real world, he stressed, neither men nor women base their romantic choices on age alone. So we're talking about reality. We're talking about common sense here, not some bias, some agenda that some third-wave feminist has. We look for many different characteristics when choosing a partner, and age is just one of them. Well, duh. For the study, Antfolk surveyed nearly 2,700 adults between the ages of 18 and 50. Some were single, he said, and some were in long-term relationships. The majority were heterosexual, while just over 1,000 were bisexual or homosexual. All study participants gave the age range they would consider for a sexual partner. Then they were asked about their actual partners in the last 5 years. I guess this is where we get to the money shot, huh? Overall, Antfolk found young men preferred women their own age. Makes sense. And compared with women, men were generally more willing to consider a partner substantially younger than they were. For example, the average age of heterosexual men in the study was 37, and on average they would consider having sex with a woman as young as 21, not these teeny boppers like this other woman was talking about. Okay, by comparison, heterosexual women were 35 years old on average, and the youngest partner they would consider was around 27, again on average. The findings showed. So it's a little bit different. So men in their mid-30s will go down as low as 21, and women will go down as low as 27. It's not really big difference. 6 years. Not a big difference. And we're talking about, this is a study. If you studied every person in the world, what would you come up with? Would it be a wider gap or a narrow gap? As women grew older, they generally put more limits on how young they would go. For each year in a woman's age, her definition of too young increased by about 4 months, Antfolk found. But, listen to this, men's preferences evolved too, though not as much. Their youngest age limit crept up by 2 months on average each year. But men were also interested in women their own age, the study found. And men and women did not differ much when it came to the oldest age they would consider. Plus, men's actual behavior looked different from their reported interest. So here we get down to the juice. They typically had sex with women who were close to their own age. And of course they try to explain this, whether that reflects men's true preference or simple reality. It's not clear, according to Justin Lehmiller, a social psychologist who wasn't involved in the study. So he's a backseat driver. It might be more of a reflection of how the dating game works, said Lehmiller. He directs the social psychology graduate program at Ball State University in Muncie, Indiana. But it's difficult to know what drives people's actual sexual behavior, Lehmiller pointed out. Study participants were asked about the age range of their sexual partners, but the context was left out, he said. So it's not clear how often older men were actually dating women their own age, or how often they'd been with the same women for the past 20 years, he explains. So we'll get back to this. We're going to wrap this up. What we're going to ask of The Guardian and the people writing in The Guardian is that when they reference 3 studies, one appears to be some kind of scientific study. One looks like a scientific study too. One was kind of OkCupid, running their numbers. When you look at studies, whether scientific or not only don't cherry pick them, in this case, it wasn't a case of cherry picking. It was a case of misrepresenting, taking conclusions that weren't made in the study and putting them in this article. It shows an agenda. I don't know what her agenda is. And it's supposedly there's some kind of crisis in masculinity, but it's more like a crisis for feminists. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Please take a moment to subscribe. Click the bell button or whatever that thing is so you get notifications about my new videos. And if you feel so inclined, hit us up on Patreon, some minor thing you could fling at us a month. And also in the description, you'll see all the links to this stuff and social media sites. Nice talking to you again. Goodbye.